Welcome, brave souls, to this very special Halloween episode of Matters of Creative. Today, we're diving into the shadows where marketing has gone terribly wrong.
And in the spirit of Halloween, we've unearthed some of the most chilling, spine-tingling tales of marketing gone wrong, told by our fearless past guests. These are the marketing horror stories that keep even the boldest creatives awake at night.
So grab your flashlight, listen close, and remember, no matter how terrifying the experience, there's always a lesson to be learned. Let's dive into the graveyard of creative nightmares. All right, Blake. Big question. What is your worst marketing horror story?
All right, so this takes place in 2011 or 12, maybe 12. And I had been working with this client who, he was very successful because of the campaigns I was running for him. It was a really interesting niche idea. And he got kind of paranoid. He had some other issues kind of going on. It's like we went our separate ways. And he took over his Google Ads account. And within a couple of days, he started calling me and sending me text messages telling him to stop clicking on his ads. And like I wrote back, I'm like, I'm not. Like, that's a waste of my time. And a couple days later, it's probably like 9 or 10 p.m. at night, I get a knock on my door. I open the door, and there's this pretty big, yoked out guy. And he just looks at me and he goes, "Hey, you better stop messing with Bobbie, or I'm gonna be back and it's not gonna be good." I was like, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "I'm just here to send you a message that you better stop messing with Bobbie." And then he walked away. I closed the door and I was like freaking the hell out, going like, "Holy crap. I'm gonna get jumped. Like, I'm gonna get jumped. I'm gonna get my this is not good."
That's crazy.
Yeah, sleeping was not really an option for the next couple of days. So then I got in contact with him, asked him to give me access back to the account so I could figure out what had happened. And he did. I got into the account, and what he did was he changed his campaigns from they were running like a $200 to $300 per day spend. He ramped them all up to like $5,000 to $10,000 per day. Changed the targeting from the very specific metro areas because his clients were like big agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 10 or 12 metro areas across the country. He changed it to the United States, and he went in and added single keyword broad match keywords to the campaigns. And those keywords were like catering, truck,
Oh no.
van. And so like I then understood why he was texting me thinking it was me, because he was spending 30 grand a day on
God.
these broad match keywords that were never ever going to convert.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cleaned it up and then kicked myself back out of the account and said, "I fixed it. This is what happened. Please don't do that again, because this is why." And he had owed me money. And so what he did was he gave me a commercial Vitamix blender that I still have to this day.
As payment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is
So
nuts.
that's my horror story.
That is one for the books. That'll be at the top. There's...
All right. So today we have Cassandra Lee, and she is going to share her marketing horror story.
Okay, so my marketing horror story is with a client that we worked with on a large launch. She was based in Spain, but she followed all of the marketing and sales strategies from a marketing guru, I guess, from the United States. And she basically tried to replicate all of the countdown timers and the typical buy now. This is valued at 3,000 euros, but you're getting it today for 297 euros. All of that stuff, which works really well in the United States for an audience that really understands like that type of marketing. But she tried to replicate all of that in Spain, and it was an absolute nightmare. Basically, I had to jump in and field questions for so many people. She had to get on calls to like answer so many questions. I think she lost out on quite a bit of sales because so many people were just so confused with what she was doing. Like they understood the product, but they really did not understand how she was selling it. So they were like, what am I paying? Am I paying 3,000 euros? Or you want me to pay 297 euros? Do I need to buy it today? Or is it like gone tomorrow? And they were like, I don't understand. And it was just back and forth like that for about a few days because they just didn't understand the entire concept. So I think she lost quite a bit of sales just because she was fielding so many questions. And I think that's the people who did ask. Imagine all the people who read it, got confused, and were like, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good share.
Okay, so I have this horror story. It still haunts me to this day. It happened probably like 3 or 4 years ago. So I got a comment on a post that I put on Instagram, and I had shot this GIF of a product, and it was kind of like moving back and forth. And I got a comment from somebody who was like, I love this so much. And then I got a DM from them saying, hey, I have a hair extension business. I would love to have you come shoot my hair extensions. And I was like, okay, sure, like, cool. I locked in the date and then never heard from her again. So I kept following up. I was like, hey, can we hop on a call? Can we go over a shot list? Like whatever you have for me. I never heard back from her, which should have been a red flag. I don't know what was going on. So it was like, I don't know, maybe a week before the shoot. And she's like, hey, okay, so the shoot is in Coos Bay, Oregon, which is like maybe a 10-hour drive. And I didn't know that. Like I had no information. So I was just like, okay, sure. Like didn't charge for travel, like whatever. So I drive to Coos Bay, Oregon, and I still like haven't heard anything. I haven't received anything. I keep being like, hey, I don't know if you have my proper email address. Like I still haven't gotten a shot list. Like whatever. I was like kind of panicking. I get to Coos Bay, Oregon. I go to a Mexican restaurant because I'm just kind of like waiting to hear like like what do I do? Where am I going? She calls me. It's the first time I've actually like gotten to connect with her. She calls me and she's like, hey, yeah, the shoot's on. Like, why are you freaking out? And I was like, oh, okay, like great. I just hadn't heard anything. And she hung up on me because I was like apparently being confrontational by just like asking questions. Oh, so I was
How dare you?
Yeah, I was like eating an enchilada and like lost my appetite immediately. I was like, panic. What am I doing here? Like, is this real? So whatever. I end up calling her a bunch. I finally get a hold of her. She tells me where the shoot is the next morning. I go to the shoot and there are like 50 people there. I mean, it's like 20 models, a huge video team, a bunch of other photographers, probably like 10 other photographers, and then me. And I was like, oh, okay, like this is a shoot. And I guess I'll just like roll with it. Everyone else seemed to know exactly what was happening. Everyone else like rolling through scenes. I was like, okay, here I am. And the hair extensions girl, I guess, was like mad at me. I don't know why. And handed me a box of hair extensions. And she was like, here, just shoot this I just need the product shots of these. And I like didn't really have any place to shoot them. So I'm like laying them on the ground. I'm like twirling them around. I'm like putting a hairbrush next to them. Like I have no shot list to work off of. I have no idea if this looks right, like no information. So whatever. So I shoot the product. I leave, I deliver the photos, and she responds and she's like, wait, why aren't these moving? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a photographer. I'm not a videographer. And she was like, no, like that Instagram post I liked of yours. Why aren't they moving? And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't shoot GIFs. I didn't shoot, like, that wasn't even a conversation. Like, no, I had no idea that that's what she was looking for. Anyway, so she didn't want to pay for them. She ended up paying for them after a very long time, but yeah.
I'd say that's a total horror story. One horrifying story that comes to mind for me is when I worked for Range Rover. And this was way back, more than 20 years ago. And we had been working with a PR firm, and the founder of that PR firm was this woman named Lizzie Grubman, who infamously had gotten in trouble because she, I think, was drinking and driving, or she backed her SUV into a group of people. It was not a Range Rover that she was driving, but it was an SUV. And we worked with her years after that occasion, that incident had occurred. She was our PR person for a couple of projects. And Page Six did a blurb about it. And they said that by us hiring Lizzie Grubman was the equivalent of someone hiring OJ to sell knives. And it was just a horrifying experience to have something like that written in Page Six. Bill Ford of the Ford family was the CEO of Ford, who owned Land Rover, Range Rover at the time. He was not pleased. It was just all around an incredibly dramatic situation. But, you know, those things happen. And sometimes the amount of publicity that comes out of it is an upside when you're trying to get attention for a brand. But when you're in the middle of it, not always fun experiences.
Yeah, that sounds like a big one. I can imagine the late night you had that night.
All right, Kate, the big question. What is your worst marketing horror story?
Ooh, okay, so more UX design than marketing, but something that's always been part of my job is to, design and facilitate working sessions with large groups of people to really get alignment with everyone in the room so that we can move forward. So earlier in my career, when I was trying to do this, I had not really learned that there's definitely a max in terms of number of people you can do this successfully with. So this was a pretty high stakes space. And so I decided to design this really, the workshop itself was designed to a T. I was going to get a lot accomplished in 3 hours. We had snacks brought in. People flew in for this thing. I was feeling confident, but not too confident. I had someone to help me there. I got the room ready and everything. And then I quickly realized when I got there that the attendee list had grown and grown and grown because people were bringing in chairs to the room, and I was observing like 30, 40 chairs. And I was like, oh my God, like this is going off the rails. I'm not sure I'm going to be successful. Is this one of those moments where I can like pivot and like try to figure this out, or what are we going to do? So that's what we tried to do. It was kind of like a traditional design thinking workshop where we were asking people to like reflect on a scenario and then brainstorm ideas, get up and like write down sticky notes, but I simply did not have enough sticky notes to go around. And so it ended up being one of those situations where we tried, but it was very obvious that it wasn't working. So I had to say, hey, you know what? I think we were a little ambitious. We're going to have to take a pause and regroup and figure out how we want to proceed. But I essentially had to
kind of, rip the Band-Aid off and confront the fact that I was not going to be able to finish the session that day. So that I still think about it all the time. I'm not sure it was like that was the worst thing that happened in my career, but I definitely taught me a lesson that you have to keep things small and focused, or it's just simply not going to work.
Thanks, Kate. That was great.
All right, Leah, big question. What is your worst business horror story?
Okay. So there was a time I had a team that was based in Europe, and I was working with them. I'd been there in person, but then we were expanding it to some of the other teams. So I was doing this by Zoom. So I was going to do 2 of them. One was in the morning at, I don't know, some early time, right? Because of the time difference. So it was probably 7 o'clock in the morning. And then I had it on in my phone or on my computer for the next one would be at noon the next day. So I thought, okay, great, I'm all set. So that night I'm in bed and I get a call at 11:50 p.m. saying, Leah, I'm on Zoom. Where are you? And I said, oh, I thought this was noon tomorrow. And she said, no, we have, I don't know, probably 50 people who will be waiting. Oh my gosh, I jumped out of bed so fast. I had to put myself together, go downstairs. Luckily, I had all my notes out from the previous day, but I had to present at midnight after getting out of bed just 10 minutes before. So it about gave me a heart attack, but I did it and I pulled it off. So.
When you ask me about horror stories, I have so many from my travels around the world over time, but there's one in particular that I'd like to share right now, and it's related to a business where we were expanding outside of the United States, entering a new country, and our model for entering new countries primarily was finding a local business or leader who was experienced in operating within that country, because we were smart enough to know that while we were really good at what we did in our home market, that doesn't mean we naturally were good anywhere else. And so recognizing that, we would go into markets years in advance and really begin cultivating relationships and finding somebody who could represent our values, but who also brought the kind of experience and operating standards and government relations and import expertise and labor understanding and all of that it takes to run a business, who could then partner with us, and we would bring what we were good at and they'd bring what they were good at locally, and hopefully build a really good business together. That's how we operated, and that worked well most of the time around the world. There was one particular market where we entered where something broke down in our due diligence work up front, where we completed a relationship with a local operator who had tremendous experience, was incredibly good at what he and his team could bring in terms of all the technical things we needed, people and governments and legal requirements, regulatory requirements, and labor hiring, and all of that we needed was phenomenal. What somehow we missed in that experience was the fact that this person in the leader's background included association with a lot of unsavory businesses and a lot of pornography kinds of things that, again, no judgment to anybody, but became all of a sudden exploded in the news about this individual. It was not related to our business, but it was related to this individual. But of course, every time they talk about this individual and these allegations and associations and activities that were coming up that were quite pervasive, it was always mentioned that, and he's the leader of this business and that business and the business we were with him together with in that country. And so it became very quickly, after a short time in this market, that the name of our company was directly associated with all those other activities, and it was damaging to the brand. And it turned out to be the only time after this company that I was part of has been in 60 plus countries around the world. There's only one we ever went into and pulled out of, and it was this one, where we quickly learned that as successful as we could be in engaging consumers, we couldn't overcome the damage from a relationship and just that perception of a connection. And so it was, at the moment, a little surprising to some of us that something like that could be so fragile, that the business could be successful, but damaged so easily by what somebody else did. And it just led me to really understand the necessity of relationship and reputation and sharing of values that we missed in that one. So that's my horror story. It cost us a lot of money, and hopefully we won't make that mistake again.